Welcome, everyone, to Data Innovation Summit 2024, the 9th edition. I'm excited to be here. As you can see, I am inside the Data Octagon, which has now been redubbed to the Data Igloo. I'm only kidding, but they get more extravagant every year. There's more delegates than ever here at Data Innovation Summit this year. I heard it's as much as 3,333 people. Not the number of the beast, but the number of the data god. Excuse the pun. I know we're not in Gothenburg. We're in Stockholm. But there's delegates from not 100 nations, but certainly feels like it. There's a lot of people here. The theme for this year almost doesn't need to be said. Am I right? It's generative AI. And there are a couple of interesting things to think about. The state of the art, GPT-4, those kinds of models. You know, GPT-4 started training over 2 years ago. So what's coming next? The theme of this conference is applying generative AI and getting value. And in the projects that I've been involved in this past year, there's one thing I've noticed. It's difficult both for the tech teams and for the business teams to apply generative AI. It's not about the specifics of implementing one technique or another. It's about the teamwork. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the best practices for applying these techniques and getting the product that you actually envision out into production, people are not entirely used to sort of working with product management of these kinds of products. I think a very good analogy is e-commerce. A brick and mortar retailer does not become an e-commerce company because they have a website. Right? There's a lot more to e-commerce than just being on the web. And it's the same thing with generative AI. There's more to generative AI than just having a chatbot that can handle customer support calls. What are these products in your company? How do you measure value? And you have to be really careful that how you measure value doesn't become a tautology where everybody sort of just nods at each other and say, yeah, I know what value is. You have to have the exercise, the business exercise, where you find metrics for quantifying what the business value is. And a lot of times these exercises aren't done, and that's what I mean by the teamwork and experience that teams need to start building now for really making these generative AI projects more crisp. I myself am going to have a session here on the stage later on this day where I talk about using generative AI for music and video, but really the applications are endless. One of the things I've been seeing is the companies that succeed very well in making first generative AI use cases are the ones where their imagination is not limited. So it's much easier for someone like myself that's more technical to say, no, that's not possible exactly the way you think, but we can adjust it and make it possible, than it is for someone like me to come to a company and say, you know, this use case is most valuable for you. So the companies that are able to be super creative and say, you know, if I could wish for anything, I would want an AI to do something like this. That is really where you can get the most traction. And even if the idea that you come up with isn't something that you can actually work with, the exercise of expressing it, making it crisp, specifying what your requirements are, setting expectations, having the team trying to deliver on those expectations, realigning when the expectations aren't met exactly. All that kind of exercise is not something you can skip. I've seen some organizations now sort of try to wait for the technology to mature before they start, investing in it. And it's not possible because you still need to do that exercise of getting your team, your technical team and your business teams good at this sort of teamwork and management. So even when the tools are better, you're going to have to pay your dues, so to speak. The good news is that the tools are becoming more commoditized, which means it's easier than ever to get started. Easier to get started with sophisticated language model use cases, image model use cases. The downside is, as they are commoditized, access to them becomes easier, which means that your competition has them, expectations from customers go up, and it's no longer a competitive advantage or really a service that would please the customer and make them delighted. the longer you wait to start using these technologies, and I think the question is, which becomes rhetorical at this point, where are we headed? Are we headed into a world where generative AI becomes what advanced analytics was? You know, a hygiene thing, but not really anything worth noting about? Or do we think that generative AI is something that is truly transformative? Whatever you are, wherever you are, well, I shouldn't say wherever you are. In my opinion, it's quite clear that generative AI is basically the same revolution as the internet. This is something that is going to transform humanity as a whole. And if you don't agree, you should probably be here, come into the Data Octagon and tell me why. We're going to have a number of really good panels. We're going to have a number of good product reviews. And make sure to stay tuned for some of the panels here where we're going to have both esteemed people, CTOs from very large companies, subject matter experts in AI ethics and those sorts of things, and myself that's going to try to be a little bit hard, but not too hard. So we'll see what happens. It sounds like there's an earthquake outside. That means that the event is about to start. We have about 3 minutes left until the main event starts. So sit tight, grab a little bowl of popcorn, and get ready for the action. I'll be seeing you around.